5 years of marriage, one flickering candle, and a piece of cake turned mess. Sarah and Michael's anniversary dinner unravels into a night of raw truths, unexpected apologies, and the beginning of a deeper love. The elegant restaurant hummed, with quiet conversation and the gentle clinking of silverware against fine china. Soft jazz music drifted through the air as couples enjoyed intimate dinners at candlelit tables. Sarah Chen, a 32-year-old marketing executive dressed in her favorite navy blazer, sat across from her husband, Michael Torres. At 34, Michael had chosen his best button-down shirt for this special occasion, their 5th wedding anniversary. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Between them sat a small chocolate cake adorned with a single flickering candle, casting a warm glow across their faces. Sarah pulled out her phone to capture the moment, her eyes sparkling with joy as she snapped a photo of the dessert that would commemorate this milestone in their marriage. 5 years, Sarah said, her voice filled with wonder as she looked at Michael. Can you believe it? It feels like yesterday we were standing in that bakery arguing about whether to serve chocolate or vanilla cake at our wedding. She laughed at the memory, remembering how seriously they had debated such a simple decision. Michael's face broke into a grin as he reached across the white tablecloth to take her hand. And we ended up with both, just like tonight, he replied, giving her fingers a gentle squeeze. Sarah squeezed back, feeling the familiar warmth of his touch, but her phone suddenly buzzed against the table. Almost instinctively, she glanced down at the screen. Michael's smile began to fade as he watched her attention drift. "Work again?" he asked, trying to keep his tone light, though disappointment crept into his voice. He had hoped that tonight, of all nights, they could disconnect from the outside world and focus solely on each other. Sarah quickly flipped her phone face down on the table, but the damage was already done. "Sorry, honey. You know how it is with the Peterson campaign launch next week," she said apologetically, though her fingers still itched to check the message. The restaurant's ambient lighting seemed to dim slightly as tension began to build. Between them, "I know," Michael said, his voice carrying a weight of accumulated frustration. "But it's always something, Sarah. The Peterson campaign, the Morrison project, the quarterly reviews. When was the last time we had dinner without your phone buzzing?" He tried to keep his voice down, mindful of the other diners, but years of feeling like he was competing with her career for attention had begun to take their toll. Sarah felt her defensive instincts kick in. She worked hard to provide for their family, to build a future they could both be proud of. "That's not fair, Michael. You know how important my career is. We talked about this when we got married. My job isn't just some hobby. It's how we pay. For this house, these dinners, our future." Her voice remained steady, but there was an edge to it that hadn't been there moments before. The waiter approached their table with the check, sensing the shift in atmosphere but maintaining his professional demeanor. He placed the small leather folder discreetly beside Sarah's elbow before retreating to give them privacy. Neither Sarah nor Michael immediately reached for it, both too caught up in the growing tension between them. Michael stared at the check, then at Sarah, who was unconsciously drumming her manicured nails against the table, a nervous habit she'd developed during stressful periods at work. "You're right," he said quietly, his voice taking on a bitter tone. "You do pay for everything. You pay for the house, the dinners, the nice clothes. But what about paying attention to us? What about investing in this marriage?" The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had been smoldering for months. Sarah's eyes flashed with hurt and anger. "That's completely unfair, Michael. I work hard so we can have a good life together. Everything I do is for us." She reached for her purse, her movements sharp and decisive. "If you're so concerned about who pays for what, then fine." But as Sarah fumbled with her wallet, her hands shaking slightly with emotion, her credit card slipped from her fingers and fell to the floor. She bent to retrieve it, but Michael, in a moment of frustration and symbolic gesture, picked up a small piece of the anniversary cake with his fork. "You want to know what I think about your priorities," Michael said, his voice rising slightly. Before either of them could think clearly, he flicked the piece of cake in Sarah's direction. It landed on her blazer with a soft splat, leaving a chocolate stain on the navy fabric. The restaurant seemed to freeze. Conversations at nearby tables stopped mid-sentence. The gentle jazz music continued playing, but it now felt jarringly inappropriate against the sudden silence. Sarah looked down at the cake on her jacket, then up at Michael, her face a mixture of shock, hurt, and disbelief. Sarah stood up slowly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Every eye in the restaurant was on them now, but she felt strangely calm despite the chaos of emotions swirling inside her. She looked at Michael, really looked at him, and saw something she hadn't noticed before. Not just anger, but pain. Deep, accumulated pain from feeling invisible in their marriage. Instead of storming out or raising her voice, Sarah did something unexpected. She sat back down and picked up her own fork, taking a deliberate bite of the anniversary cake. The awa chocolate was rich and sweet, but it tasted different now, tinged with the bitterness of their argument and the salt of unshed tears. "You're right," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the restaurant's hushed atmosphere. "I have been paying for everything except the one thing that matters most, attention to what we've built together." She reached across the table, not caring about the stains on her blazer or the stares from other diners. "Michael, I'm sorry. I've been so focused on providing for our future that I forgot to live in our present." Michael's anger began to deflate as he saw the genuine remorse in his wife's eyes. The cake-throwing gesture, which had seemed satisfying for a split second, now felt childish and cruel. "Sarah, I'm sorry, too. I shouldn't have. This isn't who I want to be." He gestured helplessly at the mess they'd created, both literally and figuratively. Sarah pulled out her phone, and for a moment Michael tensed, thinking she was about to check her messages again. Instead, she did something that shocked him. She powered it off completely and placed it in her purse. "There," she said with a small smile. "No more distractions. Just us, this terrible mess we've made, and a conversation that's about 5 years overdue." The other restaurant patrons began to return to their own conversations, realizing the drama had shifted from conflict to reconciliation. The waiter discreetly brought over some napkins, offering them with an understanding nod that suggested he'd seen similar scenes before. "I miss us," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion as he helped Sarah clean the chocolate from her jacket. "I miss feeling like your partner instead of just a roommate who shares expenses with you." The honesty in his words cut through. Years of accumulated resentment and miscommunication. Sarah felt tears finally spill over as she realized how much pain her husband had been carrying. "I miss us too. I got so caught up in building our life that I forgot to actually live it with you. The irony is that I work so hard because I love you, because I want us to have security and options and freedom. But what's the point of financial freedom if we're not free to enjoy each other?" Michael reached for the check that had started this whole confrontation. "Let me pay tonight," he said. "Not because I have to prove anything, but because I want to. Because celebrating our anniversary should be something we both contribute to, not a burden you carry alone." Sarah nodded, understanding that this wasn't really about money. It was about partnership, about sharing responsibilities and joys equally. "Next time, let's split it," she suggested. "Not just the bill, but everything. The planning, the attention, the effort to keep us connected." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing the weight of what had just happened. The restaurant's atmosphere felt different now, warmer, more forgiving. Other couples glanced over with knowing smiles, recognizing the universal struggle of maintaining connection in a busy world. "So what do we do now?" Michael asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. They had identified the problems in their marriage, but solutions would require ongoing work from both of them. Sarah smiled, and for the first time that evening, it reached her eyes completely. Now we go home, and I help you get that chocolate. Stain out of your shirt while you tell me about the graphic design project you've been working on. The one I haven't asked you about in weeks because I was too busy with my own deadlines. As they prepared to leave the restaurant, Sarah turned to Michael with a proposition that surprised him. I want to make you a promise, she said, taking both of his hands in hers. Every Tuesday night from now on is phone-free dinner night. Just us, no distractions, no work talk unless it's to celebrate each other's successes. Michael felt hope bloom in his chest for the first time in months. And I promise to tell you when I'm feeling disconnected instead of letting it build up until I do something stupid like throw cake at you in a restaurant. He managed a rueful laugh. God, I can't believe I actually did that. Well, Sarah said with a mischievous grin, it certainly got my attention. Though next time, maybe just use your words first. They both laughed, and the sound felt like a release of pressure that had been building for far too long. As they walked out of the restaurant together, Sarah's phone remained silent in her purse. The night air felt crisp and full of possibility. They had a chocolate stain on Sarah's blazer and a story they'd probably laugh about for years to come, but more importantly, they had each other's attention again. Michael slipped his arm around Sarah's waist as they walked toward their car. Happy anniversary, Mrs. Torres, he said softly. Happy anniversary, Mr. Chen Torres, she replied, using the hyphenated name they'd never officially adopted but sometimes used privately. Here's to 5 more years of figuring it out together. 3 months later, the same restaurant hummed with its familiar atmosphere of quiet elegance. But tonight everything felt different for Sarah and Michael Torres Chen. They sat at a corner table by the window, the city lights twinkling beyond the glass like scattered diamonds on black velvet. The soft jazz that had once seemed ironic during their anniversary confrontation now provided the perfect backdrop for their laughter as they shared a plate of bruschetta, playfully fighting over the last piece with their forks. Sarah's phone sat buried deep in her leather purse, deliberately turned off and forgotten. This had become their ritual over the past 3 months, a conscious act of disconnection from the digital world that had so often intruded on their connection to each other. The absence of that glowing screen, once such a central fixture in Sarah's hand, had created space for something more valuable, undivided attention to the man sitting across from her. Michael spread his latest design sketches across the white tablecloth with the enthusiasm of a child showing off artwork to a beloved parent. His eyes lit up as he explained his vision for a local nonprofit's rebranding project, his hands moving expressively as he described color palettes and typography choices. Sarah found herself genuinely fascinated by the creative process she had, so often dismissed as secondary to her own high-pressure marketing world. She asked thoughtful questions about his design choices, marveling at how he could convey an entire organization's mission through the subtle curve of a letter or the psychological impact of a particular shade of blue. The client loved the mock-ups, Michael said, pointing to a particularly elegant logo design. They said it perfectly captured their commitment to community outreach while maintaining a professional appearance for potential donors. His voice carried a pride that Sarah recognized, the same satisfaction she felt when a campaign exceeded client expectations or when her team's creative strategies drove measurable results. This is incredible work, Michael, Sarah said, studying the sketches with new appreciation. I had no idea how much psychology went into graphic design. Look at how this font choice makes their mission statement feel more approachable, more human. She traced her finger along the elegant curves of the lettering, understanding for the first time why Michael spent hours agonizing over details that once seemed insignificant to her. The transformation in their dynamic was evident to anyone who cared to observe. Where once Sarah had dominated conversations with work-related stress and Michael had retreated into quiet resentment, they now engaged in genuine dialogue about both of their professional passions. Sarah had learned to ask follow-up questions about his projects, while Michael had discovered ways to support her career ambitions without feeling diminished by them. Their waiter, the same middle-aged gentleman who had witnessed their anniversary, disaster 3 months earlier, approached with their entrees and a knowing smile. David had been serving couples in this restaurant for over 15 years, and he had developed an eye for relationship dynamics. He remembered the chocolate cake incident clearly, not because it was the most dramatic scene he'd witnessed, but because of how it had ended. Most couples who fought in his restaurant left separately or in stony silence. These two had stayed, talked, and somehow found their way back to each other over dessert. "How are the sketches coming along?" David asked Michael as he sat down there, plates genuinely interested. Over the past few months, he had watched this couple return regularly, and each time they seemed more connected, more present with each other. It gave him hope for his own marriage, which had weathered its own storms over the years. "Really well, thank you for asking," Michael replied, carefully moving his artwork to make room for their dinner. "Sarah's actually been helping me think through some of the marketing implications of the design choices. She has this incredible insight into consumer psychology that I never considered before." Sarah beamed at the compliment, but more than that, she felt seen and valued in a way that had nothing to do with her job title or salary. Michael wasn't just tolerating her expertise, he was actively seeking it out and finding ways to integrate their skills collaboratively. This mutual respect had become the foundation of their renewed partnership. As they began to eat, Sarah reflected on the changes that had rippled through their relationship since that pivotal night. The Tuesday phone-free dinners had become sacred time, but the practice had expanded beyond those designated evenings. They had gradually learned to be more present with each other throughout the week, creating pockets of connection that sustained them through busy periods and stressful deadlines. The chocolate stain on Sarah's navy blazer, now hanging in their bedroom closet, had indeed never fully disappeared despite multiple attempts at professional cleaning. But rather than discarding the garment, Sarah had chosen to keep it as a tangible reminder of their commitment to working through conflicts rather than walking away from them. Sometimes she would catch sight of it while getting dressed and remember the feeling of sitting in that restaurant covered in cake, making promises to prioritize their marriage. The stain had become a badge of honor, proof that love could survive messy moments and emerge stronger. "I got the Peterson campaign results today," Sarah mentioned casually as she cut her salmon. In the past, work news would have dominated their entire dinner conversation, but now she offered it as simply one element of her day, not the defining feature of her existence. "And," Michael prompted, genuinely interested but not anxious about the answer affecting his own mood or self-worth. "We exceeded expectations by 23%, Sarah said with satisfied smile. "The client is already talking about expanding the contract for next quarter." She paused, then added something that would have been unthinkable 3 months earlier. "But honestly, I'm more excited about the weekend we planned." "When was the last time we just wandered around the farmer's market without any agenda?" This shift in priorities hadn't happened overnight. It had required conscious effort from both of them to redefine success in their marriage. Sarah had learned to measure the value of her time not just in billable hours or career advancement, but in moments of genuine connection with her husband. Michael had discovered that supporting Sarah's ambitions didn't diminish his own worth, and that her professional success could actually enhance their partnership when approached collaboratively. Their communication style had evolved as well. Instead of letting small irritations accumulate into explosive arguments, they had developed a practice of daily check-ins. Each evening, they would spend 10 minutes sharing not just the events of their day, but their emotional responses to those events. This simple ritual had prevented the kind of emotional distance that had nearly destroyed their marriage. The restaurant's atmosphere seemed to embrace their contentment. Other diners occasionally glanced over at their table, drawn by the genuine warmth of their interaction. They represented something increasingly rare in a world of distracted partnerships, a couple who had learned to be fully present with each other. As they finished their meal, Michael reached across the table to take Sarah's hand, a gesture that had become natural again rather than forced or perfunctory. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "For staying that night. For not walking out when I threw cake at you. For choosing us over being right." His thumb traced gentle circles on her palm, a physical reminder of their renewed intimacy. Sarah squeezed his hand in return. "Thank you for throwing the cake," she said with a laugh that held no bitterness. "I needed the wake-up call, even if your delivery method could use some work." They had learned that love wasn't just about compatibility or shared dreams. It was about the willingness to do the difficult work of remaining curious about each other, even after years of thinking they knew everything there was to know. Marriage wasn't perfect now, but it was vibrantly alive, full of discovery and genuine appreciation for the unique gifts each brought to their partnership. As they prepared to leave, David the waiter approached their table one final time. "It's wonderful to see you both doing so well," he said warmly. "You've become one of my favorite couples to serve. There's something special about watching people choose each other again and again." Walking out into the cool evening air, Sarah and Michael felt the weight of possibility ahead of them. They had learned that presence truly was the most profound gift partners could offer each other, and they were committed to giving that gift daily, imperfectly but intentionally, for all the years to come.